Happy Friday's Eve. Happy Thursday, everyone. How are you doing? This is Tabitha Washington, founder of the Travel Crew, and here with another live session of Travel Talk. I hope everyone is having a great week. The week is almost over. I hope it treated you well. Happy June. We just went into June yesterday. I'm telling you, this year, y'all, we almost halfway through 2022. That's wild. I don't know. Time just keeps passing by. But I hope 2022 has been good to you so far. So I'm so glad you're joining us. You could be joining us from our Facebook business page, the Travel Crew. We have a YouTube channel. If you're joining us from the YouTube channel, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. And of course, you may be joining us from our Facebook group, Travel Crew Travel Talk. And as always, as I mentioned, if you're joining from the Facebook group, if you make a comment, you either need to register through StreamYard and you'll see the link to register, or just say who you are, because if you make a comment to me, I can't see who it is. It just says Facebook user. So I wanted you to just to know that. So I do see people coming in. Thank you so much. And go ahead and tell me hello. Give me a little shout out and stuff. And you know what else I would like? Technically it's summer. I will call it, because a lot of people consider Memorial Day weekend as the kickoff to summer. And in fact, the Travel Crew, we just had some people in Los Cabos at the Hard Rock for the summer kickoff. So it's summer. And one thing I like to do is just, listen to good music. I don't know. So what's your summer jam? Put that in the comment section too. I would love to know. Maybe I just need to pull it up tonight and on my phone or stream it or whatever. So thank you again for joining us. Come on in. Okay, y'all, we need to go ahead. Y'all see this? This is my Aunt Benita. I don't even know why she put Auntie Benita. I don't even call it that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Auntie. And if you're here, go ahead, drop like I said, follow my aunt's guidelines. Tell me hello in the comment section. I love hearing when people are in. And also, the question of the day is, what's your favorite summer song to listen to? What just gets you hype and you just want to jam to during the summer? So tonight, the subject at hand is going to be the real ID and how it's going to affect your travels. So I wanted to talk about that because if you are a traveler and if you are, following the Travel Crew, if you travel with the Travel Crew, you love travel, there's a reason why you're doing it. And so there are some things that will affect. More people are coming in. Great. Let me just go ahead and again, I'm just going to repeat what we're talking about tonight is real ID and how it will affect your travel. So just come on in. And as I talk, if you have questions, just please put them in the comment section and I will go ahead and answer them to the best of my ability. I want to go ahead and put my little libel comment up front is that I'm just going by information that I got basically from the internet. So I don't want to give you the wrong information. Not saying that I don't want you to feel that I'm the ultimate source for your information. And in fact, speaking of sources, let me go ahead and give you some links. So you can see here, and let me go ahead and edit this because that was one site, but I actually wanted to give you two. The beauty of technology. Okay, so if you look at the bottom, I put the two links that you can use, dhs.gov/real-ID or real-ID, and then tsa.gov/real-ID. The first one is the Department of Homeland Security, and then the next one is TSA, which does fall under the Department of Homeland Security. But both of them will give you some more information about the real ID. So what is the real ID? The real ID actually came from a congressional act from 2005. So it has taken that long to get it implemented. It came about after 9/11, because some of the people involved in it had were able to get fraudulent IDs. Washington, they were real, legitimate issued IDs, but with fraudulent backgrounds and stuff. So this is supposed to be more secure. That's what the whole emphasis was on. But there was pushback from states and everything, get things straight. So they've never been able to enforce it. They were actually supposed to enforce it a few years ago, but then COVID hit, and then they pushed it date back with the first impact of COVID, and then they had to push it back again. So now the new date for the real ID to go into effect is May 3rd of 2023. So less than a year from now, real IDs will be in effect. So what does that mean? One, let me show you what a real ID looks like. Sorry, I didn't have this pulled up immediately. Excuse me. But in the meantime, I'll read comments as I go ahead and get that put up. Okay, I got an old school summer song is "Baby Let's Cruise." Okay, I'm sorry, I don't even know that one. But I'm gonna look it up. Baby Let's Cruise, Baby Let's Cruise. What? I feel like I should know it, but I don't. And now I feel bad, but I will look into it. I promise. So let me show you what it looks like. So hopefully everybody can see this. Oops, I'm showing you the wrong picture, y'all. That's so sad. Sorry about that. So I guess I'm having technical difficulties. All right. Thank you for being patient with me. We're going to try this again. Okay, here we go. So this example that I put here is the Louisiana version of the real ID. There, of course, every state has their version, but the one thing that all these IDs have in common is if you see in this upper on your screen, it'll be the upper right hand corner. You will see that star with the circle, and that's how you know you have a real ID. Every state has, from what I understand, everybody this signifies the real ID is with that. So you can look at your IDs now. If you see that you have that, then you're already compliant and you have the real ID and you have nothing to worry about. But if you don't have that, then this is what you need to do. So I hope everybody saw that. Real ID has a star in the upper right hand corner. Okay. So there are a few things. Let's just go through how it's going to well, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how. Let's talk about how to get that ID first. Um, of course, you need to go through your DMV, OMV, whatever you want to call it, Office of Motor Vehicles or the Department of Motor Vehicles, and you need to get that in place. When you go to update your ID, your driver's license to the real ID, you're going to have to bring an established identity for your date of birth. That could be your birth certificate, but you can also use a passport as well, and naturalization papers and or certificate of citizenship. So that's one. You need to establish your identity with your date of birth and lawful status. The second thing you need to do is to proof of your social security number. Now, from what I saw on the Louisiana site, it says social security number can be provided verbally. Check with your office of motor vehicles to make sure. But also, they take the social security card, a W-2, a 1099 for you entrepreneurs and contractors, and a pay stub with your name and social security number on it. That will count also towards your social security. And the third form of proof, our third type of proof, is two original documents, which include your name and your address. And this is what I'm reading off of the Louisiana page. If you're in another state, please look at your state's Office of Motor Vehicles to make sure that this is the same thing. But back to the two original documents which prove your address. This could be your utility bills, a financial statement, your current driver's license, as long as it's active, employer verification, like a paycheck stub, your explanation of benefits that comes from your insurance company, or even a tax refund. So that's three forms that you have to go into your Office of Motor Vehicles when you're trying to get your new license, your new real ID. Is you need to establish your date of birth with lawful status and identity, and that could be your passport or your birth certificate, naturalization papers, or certificate of citizenship. You also need proof of your social security number. Like I said, on Louisiana site, it said you can give the SSN verbally, but also you can have your social security card, your W-2, a 1099, or a pay stub with your name and social security number. And the third form of proof that you need to bring are two original documents that prove your name and your address. And that could be utility bills, financial statements, current license, employer verification, and so on. That is what I got from the Louisiana site. And let's see if I wrote down. I did not put the Louisiana webpage on here, but if you look up Louisiana Office of Motor Vehicles and Real ID in any state that you're in, just look up that to get your the requirements that you're needed when you need to go ahead and do your license. So like I said, Real IDs go into effect May 3rd, 2023. Now, what does that mean for you as far as travel? This is how it can affect you for travel. Now, the Real ID is supposed to be used, the importance of travel and entering a federal building. I'm not going to speak on entering a federal building, but that's courthouses and things like that. I don't know if that means like agencies and in the federal buildings, like where you work, like Department of Energy or something like that. I don't know how that relates. So I'm only going to speak on the travel. Now, if you are flying domestic, meaning you're staying within the continental U.S., U.S. because Hawaii is and Alaska, that's fine too. Anyway, flying domestically, you can fly if you don't have the Real ID in effect by May 3rd, 2023. And that's the other thing. You would just be considered non-compliant. There isn't a penalty for not having a Real ID in effect by May 3rd of 2023, but you are considered non-compliant. If you do not have the Real ID and you take a domestic flight, then you will have to bring another form of supportive, something supporting to go along with it, like a passport or a military ID. So even for just a domestic flight, you're going to have to show up with your traditional driver's license or identification, state issued, along with a passport or a military ID. And that's even for a domestic flight. Normally you don't need a passport for a domestic flight, but you will need that if you do not have a Real ID by May 3rd, 2023, and you do domestic travel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause because I have been talking. I'm just going to make sure there were no comments about the Real ID. I was just giving clarification that it was Smokey Robinson. I think I do know the song. Now that you said Baby Let's Cruise by Smokey Robinson. Okay, so I don't see any questions in the comment section about Real ID, so I'm going to continue on. I do see more people have joined since I started. So if you're just starting, I'm Tabitha, founder of the Travel Krewe, and tonight we're talking about the Real ID and how it's going to affect your future travels. So go ahead. Like I said, You can put a hello in the comment section, but any questions that you have as I explain this, go ahead and drop them in the comment section. I'll answer them while we're explaining. So I just told you how what happens with domestic flights with a real ID, and if you don't have it in place by May 3rd of 2023. And just to repeat myself, you can, you don't, you still can fly if you don't have the real ID. You will be considered non-compliant, and you will have to bring another form of verification along with you. So you would have your driver's license and a passport or military ID, and that's even to fly domestically. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Okay, now moving on to international travel. So international travel, um, it they want you to also be real ID compliant, and you know you have to have a passport anyway. Um, this, it says, from what I looked up, is that, you know, when TSA, they'll swipe, you know, you can hand your license and swipe it. If you do that, then it needs to be a real ID. There is no exception. However, from what I see, is that you can also present your passport at the TSA checkpoint to go through the little swipe machine, which, from my understanding, it looks like if you didn't have the real ID in place and you were traveling internationally, that you could, excuse me, present your passport. Me personally, I don't want to take that risk. I don't have a real ID right now. I do plan on getting one soon. Um, but um, I personally don't want to take the risk of going through internationally and just showing my passport, just because I would just hate to screw up my travel plans by taking the risk. But like I said, from what I could read and what my research, it seems like you're okay. Excuse me one second. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay. So I just told you about internationally that so sorry. Excuse me. I just told you internationally that, from what I can see, you can present your passport at the TSA checkpoint in place of a license if you don't have the real ID in place. But me personally, I don't want to take that risk. So I am going to go ahead and get the real ID and have it in place before May 3rd, 2023, because I actually have a trip in May of 2023 headed to Paris. So I just don't want to take the risk of that. But like I said, look it up for yourself to confirm. And at the bottom of the screen, you do see the sites that you can go to. The next thing to address is, does Real ID apply to people with Clear? If you don't know, in one of my past sessions, I did mention what Clear is. And excuse me, Clear, you'll see it. It's not at every airport, but it is at the Louis Armstrong in New Orleans. And that's a service where you will bypass the wait lines. You even proceed TSA pre-check if you have Clear. It's one of the benefits. You check into the Clear line, they scan your eye because it's a whatever the kind of scan, retina scan or whatever, and then you can proceed through. You still need to have real ID. Even if you have Clear, the Clear does not exempt you from needing the real ID. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, temporary or a paper real ID is not accepted. So these are things that you keep in mind and stuff. May is approaching. Like I said, we're in June now, so you have 11 months tomorrow to get your ID in place. And like I said, it can affect your travels and stuff. It is on you. You will not there isn't a penalty. Oh, and I should also add, there's not an additional cost. Whatever it costs, normally to renew your license, that is the same cost that it will be for the real ID. It won't be an additional charge. But it is going to be have to be something the next time you get your license renewal, whether you do it before May 3rd or you do it after, like during your normal renewal time, you are eventually just going to have to get the real ID. That's what they're going to give you. I think now you have the option when you, since May 3rd, it's not in effect. You have the option now, if you were to renew your license, that you can opt out of it. It's your choice, but this is what's happening. This is what's going into effect. So keep that date in your mind, May 3rd, 2023. It can affect your future flights. With If you're flying domestically, you will have to start traveling with a passport or military ID if you don't have the real ID. And internationally, you may need to present it. And also, if you have clear, you're going to need it. So that's pretty much what I have to say about real ID. If you have real ID already, I know somebody else had put it in the comment section that they were already real ID ready. I admit I'm not real ID ready. I had planned on getting it done, and then COVID hit, and offices were shut down. I just never went back. But because I do have some international trips lined up for 2023, I want to get it in effect, get a new one before then. And you have to remember, if you're going, when you go to get your real ID, you are going to have to bring those documents that I had mentioned earlier, whether it's a birth certificate or a valid passport to prove your date of birth and identity, proof of your social security number, proof of your address. Even if you're renewing your license, you still have to bring these items for your real ID. So that's something to keep in mind too. It's not going to be just a walk in and renew your license, and you cannot renew this. You can't automatically renew. You can renew online. There's an option to call. They've even mailed it. I've received it in the mail, and you just sign off on it or whatever, that you want to renew your license. That does not work for the real ID for this initial set. I don't know how it works after that first one you get expires, if you'll be allowed to renew it that way. I kind of think you probably won't. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But I can say, when you first get the real ID, even though that may be a renewal license, you can't just select to renew. You have to bring in all those items like you were getting your first license. So I hope that I have clarified myself. Like I said, if you have comments or questions about real ID, please put them in the comment section now, if I can explain anything to you. And we do have a good no comments, but I see a good amount of you are watching, so maybe I just explained myself so well that you don't need any further info, and that's a good thing. And like I said, thank you again for watching. There are people on every platform. We have YouTube, Facebook, and a Facebook group. If you're tuning in from YouTube, please like and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions or comments about real ID, which means I'm just going to take it that I did a really good job explaining it, and I didn't have to clarify anything. And that's a good thing. So again, May 3rd, 2023, Real ID goes into effect, and that can affect your future travels. Go ahead, use those links that you see at the bottom of the screen if you need further information. Again, I'm Tabitha Washington, founder of the Travel Krewe, and thank you so much for tuning in. Please have a safe weekend. Enjoy yourself, and I'll see you next time.